The real problem isn't the argument, the content. It is the dance that you get stuck in when things feel unsafe or tension builds. In emotionally focused couples therapy, we call this the negative cycle. Have you ever longed to be able to talk about values and morals or faith and spirituality without feeling judged? Hi, and welcome to our podcast, Mindful Moments, Insights to Empower the Soul. This podcast will empower you to embrace your true self.
Hi, I'm Sharilyn Green. Welcome to our podcast. I am so anxious to get to this topic today because I think this topic should be taught in High School 101. It's such a helpful topic today for relationships. I think one of the most enlightening things we can understand about relationships. And I am lucky enough to be sitting with someone today who is such an expert in this topic. So I can't wait to get started.
Sharilyn, thank you. You are also an expert in emotionally focused therapy. This is something that when we're working with couples, initially our task is to help them see their negative cycle. It's so interesting when I have a couple where one partner is in business and they've studied systems theory. And it's so familiar to them. They're like, oh, yes, there's patterns in every system. And then we point out, well, you have one too. And even premarital couples have them. It's the dance that you get stuck in when things feel unsafe or tension builds. So the real problem isn't the argument, the content. It is the dance. So in emotionally focused couples therapy, we do call this the negative cycle. A very common one to start to really explain what this means, if you haven't been introduced to EFT, emotionally focused therapy, is the pursuer-withdrawer cycle. So the pursuer is the one that typically wants to talk it out and repair very quickly. Can we talk through this? I don't want us to be disconnected. They're anxious about fixing it quickly. They're pursuing for connection, and they want to protect the relationship. However, the pressure that they put on, their attempts to repair often backfires because it's coming from a place of pressure, anxiety, force. And so then the withdrawer is the one that does exactly the opposite. They shut down, they go away. They either emotionally or physically go away to protect the relationship. It might seem insensitive or like they are being disrespectful, but they're trying to protect the relationship from experiencing further damage. So the tendency in them is to withdraw, maybe to submit, to appease, or even to cast blame and then retreat, throw the bomb and then go away. That's typical of a withdrawer when facing tension in the relationship.
So, Debbie, you've just described what we call positions in a marriage, right? And what you have just so beautifully taught, just this alone, just understanding, wow, we have positions that we take up, and we're both trying to preserve connection, but we do it in different ways. So understanding what you just explained, often there's a pursuer and a withdrawer and kind of what each looks like. So I want to build on what you just laid as a foundation. What does this negative pattern then look like? How does it show up in a couple's relationship when one partner is the pursuer and they start to feel disconnected? So they start to think things like, I don't feel important to you anymore, or I'm so alone in this. And so when those feelings come to pursuer, they automatically reach out. It often comes out as criticism, urgency, repeated questions. There's an intensity to it. They'll start to say things like, why don't you talk to me? You're never here for me. And it's kind of an intense experience because they become alarmed. It ignites, something in them that's really kind of terrifying. So the other partner, the withdrawer, they hear this often sometimes as criticism, and they're immediately flooded and they wonder if they're failing. And inside they start to think things like, wow, I can't ever get this right. I'm not ever enough. I'm not doing enough. If I say the wrong thing, I'll make it worse. And so in an effort to kind of limit the damage, help in the ways they know best how to do, they'll pull back. They'll go quiet. They'll change the subject. They'll disappear maybe into their work or devices and screens, or sometimes even go into complete silence. And so here's where the dance takes off and begins, right? So the withdrawer then now makes the pursuer feel even more abandoned. So what do? They push harder. because to them, this signals danger. There's alarms going off of them everywhere. It's a sign of more tension. And so they pursue even harder. And then, of course, the withdrawer feels this and they retreat further. And so before long, both people are hurting. They're blaming each other instead of seeing the pattern, which is actually the enemy. It's the pattern that's the enemy, not each other, and that's taken over.
Yes, we do not label with diagnoses when we're working with couples. We don't like to do that. We say the negative pattern is the enemy, not the two of you. As you're listening to this, it's really helpful to say, what am I in my most important relationship? In our clinical work, we quickly pick up on the negative patterns. In the first session, we can see it. But the way that you can identify it is, what do you tell yourself when tension builds? We help couples see that the pursuer isn't really too much. The withdrawer isn't cold and insensitive. They're both trying awkwardly, and it's backfiring, trying to protect the relationship and to protect themselves from further hurt. So the cycle is the enemy, not either one of the partners. Once couples come to name their cycle or can see it more clearly, oh, we're in our pursue withdraw cycle again, they can then at home, outside of therapy, slow it down, talk about it, and talk about what they're really feeling underneath and reach for each other in safer ways. So it's not like, oh, I see you're in the cycle. It's, oops, here it is. We have fallen back into that pattern. So what we want to help them do while we're helping them recognize the cycle, it's important to understand, so how do we break that negative cycle? Well, in our work, it's a very subtle process, but we're going to outline it for you so that you can understand and maybe look for it in your own relationship. So awareness, you'll hear us say this probably every podcast, awareness is always the first step toward change. Being aware of the pattern, name it. I have couples that actually do name it. One couple I had named it the vortex or the Voldemort. So instead of pointing the finger of blame to your partner, try to take a stance of awareness. Try to see it as the pattern that pulls you both apart from each other. It's the exact opposite of what you need most. Saying something like, wait, it's here again, the cycle that keeps us stuck. Or, I don't think we're fighting each other. I actually think we're stuck in the cycle. That's a very compassionate way. Takes courage, takes slowing it down to say, slow down, hold on, take a breath. It's here again. It's most helpful to collaborate by seeing that the struggle isn't against each other. It's against what keeps you disconnected, what divides you. So the most productive and healthiest way to counter the negative cycle isn't by fixing your partner. I know I've got a lot of fixers out there that are listening, and all of us tend to want to, well, this is how we should do it, so let's do that. Well, it's more about recognizing, understanding, interrupting the pattern, and then rebuilding emotional safety in small, intentional steps.
Yeah, so to continue kind of talking about this process that we hope is helpful in your relationship, you can begin this process that Debbie's just described and explained by, again, naming your cycle. And I have couples too that come up with really fun names for it. There's something about naming it that's so helpful. And so instead of saying things like, you're always shutting down, or why are you so critical? It shifts, it changes, and they start saying things like, wow, we're getting into our pursue withdraw cycle again. And this simple shift, it moves the problem again out of blaming each other, out of being the pattern that it is. And so you've mentioned this already, Debbie, but I don't know if there's anything we could say more strongly in the work we do, how essential it is that we slow everything down. This stuff goes lickety split, lightning speed. It's developed over sometimes decades, these cycles that we get into so quickly. They're predictable. You can say to a spouse, tell me what happens, and they can name it as, exactly how it goes down.
Can we identify why this is so important? So our brain takes over. Our brain goes, oh, don't worry about it. I'll tell you how to do it. And it's instantaneous. Within milliseconds, that neural pathway in the brain says, do it this way. That's why slowing it down, what you're pointing out right now, is so essential. This is brain science. You're not an enemy or evil. It's your brain that says, I've done this a million times. Let me just take over. So keep going, Sherilyn. Sorry.
Your brain just, it's those pathways that this is what's going to happen and it's dangerous and the alarms are going off. And so, yeah, to slow everything down, it minimizes the conflict because it speeds up and just races to the finish line. So there's an urgency that we feel, right, to be right or to make our partner understand. But what we don't realize is that during this kind of speed up process, we're not listening to each other. We're so intensely focused on the need we have to say what we want to say and what we need to have happen for them that it just takes off before any progress can be made. So this emphasis on pausing before reacting, because when emotions spike, that's when the cycle flares. It grows and expands and takes off so quickly. And so this pausing, and that can look like just taking a breath, asking for a short break, just saying, hey, we're walking in this again. Can I step away for a minute, name it, tell them what you're doing? I need to take a break to kind of become unflooded, lowering our voices. These are things, really simple things to kind of slow things down, and just anything we can do to kind of slow the moment down to keep the cycle from escalating. So slowing down the pace and even pausing to take a breath before responding is other powerful ways to kind of manage tense emotions that come up when the cycle starts. Using a lowered voice, a softer tone, that prevents escalation as well. And I love that this puts each of us in control, right, of the cycle. Here's what I can do to interrupt it and to notice it and to become aware and make a change. So if you start to notice the pace is picking up, you can say to your partner, hey, let's slow this down for a minute. This often feels less accusatory, more of an invitation, actually. I love that word. This is an invitation now to continue this discussion, but to do it differently than we've done it before, to keep it healthier and in control. So the basic principle here is be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry.
I love that. And, you mentioned something about tone. We don't realize how much power of influence we have with our tone of voice. Just softening the tone and slowing it down can actually bring a different spirit to the conversation. But that's hard, especially when we become flooded. That's why we say recognize it swiftly so that you can keep the pace slower and softer. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Yeah. Okay. Now, another one that is so essential for us just as human beings is to become more emotionally aware. It might be difficult. I'm going to say it is difficult at first to try to turn toward a softer emotion. If you're typically the pursuer, you're going to be activated so quickly. It's just your normal way of responding. But practice sharing vulnerability instead of protesting by saying something like, I'm feeling lonely and I need reassurance. That's pointing to our heart, not pointing to the partner, rather than criticizing the partner, saying, you are making me feel lonely. If you're typically the withdrawer, which I actually am in my real life committed relationship, if you're the withdrawer, you can practice staying engaged instead of disappearing, saying to yourself, I'm feeling overwhelmed, but I don't want to disconnect from you because I know how that impacts you. So I'm trying, I'm practicing. So these are small moves that do require first that awareness and a decision within to say, I'm going to discipline myself and exercise courage to stay. It really does serve to directly weaken that cycle. You're actually interrupting patterns in your brain and rewiring a new neural pathway the minute you interrupt that pattern.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I mean, visually for me, what we're doing is we're softening the pursuer, right? It looks like this, that you're softening that pursuer down and you're engaging this withdrawer so that the connection can happen. If I could just visually maybe sum up what you're describing.
Yes.
Yeah, we can help people do that in therapy, but it can also be done on their own. So another key as we talk about the cycle is A.R.E, being accessible, responsive, and engaged. We've talked about this in another podcast, but a key piece is being able to respond with number one, I'm here for you. I'm accessible. Number two, I'm responsive to you. I'm willing to respond, to understand, and then to engage. So when one partner reaches, the other can practice just a simple attuned response, even if it's brief, like I just said. And the overall message is I'm here for you. And this can be conveyed not just with words, but simple gestures like eye contact, a nod, or an I hear you. It just sends the message that you're not alone. And we know that this builds kind of lasting emotional safety for better connection. So the bottom line is we need to allow a shift in perspective. This process actually focuses on repair, not perfection. So if the cycle shows up, and it will, you give each other another try. Grace. Again, I love that word, some grace. You come back and you try to repair it. You can say, hey, we got stuck in this earlier. I don't want that to be between us. Can we try again? So every repair, even when we don't get it right the first time, strengthens trust and makes the cycle less powerful over time. Instead of asking, how do I win this argument, which is honestly what we're honestly all thinking and doing a lot of the time, the better question would be, and I love this question, Debbie, how do we protect our bond right now?
Yes.
Because at the essence of it, we're both longing to be bonded, connected to each other. So what can I do? What can we do to protect this bond? That question alone changes the dance and it brings the couple to a win-win collaborative pathway.
So I want to point out here that this is not suggesting behavioral changes. We're suggesting emotional awareness and vulnerability. Why? Because research tells us when we gain insight into our own pain and our own struggles and in our partners, our behavior changes with the emotional awareness. It's just almost miraculous and much more powerful. It's a sacred process. If I'm going to put my personal bend into this, I really believe that this emotional awareness, slowing it down, being accessible for our partner, just, I keep saying it, creates better human beings. Isn't it interesting? What we pointed out, I identified that I am the withdrawer in my committed relationship. What's your position in the cycle?
Yeah, I'm a withdrawer as well.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. It's just the way we cope with tension. So it's not a diagnosis that requires medication or therapy, although we highly advocate emotionally focused therapy for couples. It is a powerful experience and very enlightening and invigorating. It's a positive process. We've talked about how pursuers and withdrawers collide in the midst of tension and conflict. Let's talk about how you can determine which one you are. There are ways, there's like a mini test or a quiz. Are you a pursuer for connection or do you withdraw to protect? So let's just review. The pursuer typically fears losing closeness. If that's what you're telling yourself in the midst of tension, no, I don't want to disconnect. The pursuer longs to feel claimed or chosen and valued by their person. And they often worry that they will be abandoned or left alone in their pain. That's the overall tendency, the thought process when things get painful. Behaviors that keep pursuers stuck. Well, the pursuer is the partner who moves toward the relationship. They're likely to be the one that wants to repair first and go toward the other person when they feel insecure, disconnected, or afraid of losing the bond. So at their core, pursuers are not trying to control or criticize, not explicitly trying to. They're trying to restore closeness and reassurance. That fear and the angst that actually haunts them causes them to push and put on more pressure for connection. They might speak out of frustration or even anger. And the protests appear as attacks, blaming, criticizing the other. Pursuers tend to use criticism instead of vulnerability. So it does appear to be threatening and dangerous, which actually paints the picture of being insensitive to their partner's feelings. But in reality, pursuers care very deeply about their partner's feelings, even though they appear to be nagging and relentless.
Yeah, you can see how complicated this gets for couples to decipher what's happening. It does come out a lot of with frustration and criticism. We understand underneath that what's really happening, but It can be very confusing and actually dysregulating for the system. So I'll just continue to maybe build on what you talked about with pursuers. They also are often labeled as needy or nagging or too emotional, but in reality, they're very highly relationship orientated. They are sensitive to distance and they're deeply invested in the bond, which can feel exactly the opposite when it feels critical and frustrating and an attack. They feel threatened. Again, they'll do things like they'll seek for frequent reassurance. They want to know, are we okay? They'll initiate conversations about the relationship or emotions. They again express complaints, criticism, or frustration when connection feels absent. They're pursuing, they're pushing for, are we okay? They want to do this and often ask for more time, attention, and responsiveness. And they also want to push for immediate resolution of conflict. They want to know everything's okay as quickly as possible. And if this doesn't happen, they often escalate emotionally when they don't get a response. So these are interesting behaviors and helpful to understand the why behind it, right? So we know that attachment fears drive the pursuit, that beneath these behaviors, there's a deep attachment fear. And it sounds like this. And these are the vulnerable kind of basement places that are so important to understand. It may feel to them at their deepest level, I'm worried that I matter less than I used to. Oh my goodness, am I alone in this relationship? If we don't speak, I'm so worried we're going to drift apart. And so the pursuer's nervous system is saying, our connection feels at risk. Alarm, 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 do something now.
And I want to point out, Sherilyn, that those thoughts that you just exposed, like I matter less than I used to, or I'm alone in this relationship, those aren't threatening. It's the way it comes out. These are underneath the behavior that is criticism, blaming, poking, pressuring. So, what we want is for the couple to be able to say, I'm worried that if I don't speak up, we'll drift apart. And the way that it comes out is I criticize you. So that's the insight that we're hoping they'll gain. Now let's talk about how this pursuit actually triggers the negative cycle. See, we've identified what a pursuer tells themselves, what it looks like, how they cope. And so now let's talk about how it impacts the withdrawer. The pursuer's increased intensity often leads the withdrawer to shut down. Okay, they pull away. They're like, oh, this is fire hose, which then confirms the pursuer's fear and causes them to push even harder, right? That loop, not either partner, is the real problem. So, what can pursuers do differently? Well, I mentioned one thing, that is by being really vulnerable and saying something like, I'm longing for closeness with you, but I'm so afraid that if I don't pressure you or if we don't repair right now, that I'm going to lose you. I'm feeling afraid that we're going to drift apart, that you'll leave me. That's an extreme catastrophe, right? But it's there. Or I really don't want to argue. I want to feel connected with you, but I don't know how. Please help me.
Yeah. And so as we talk about this, you can see how intense this experience can be for the withdrawer. Right? They do tend to feel overwhelmed, inadequate. There is a sense of, wow, I'm failing. I'm not enough. I'm not doing this right when this tension happens. And so there is a deep fear of failing for the withdrawer that's making things worse. It's what drives actually their tendency to shut down and emotionally withdraw, either physically, emotionally, or even both. So in the withdrawer, there's this actual overall desire to keep the peace that causes them to distance themselves from the interactions. It feels like if I engage, it's going to make it worse. And sometimes this distance can last for days. And so the withdrawer is the partner that moves away from the relationship. The pursuer's moving towards, the withdrawer's moving away when they feel overwhelmed, unsafe, or inadequate in the face of conflict or emotional intensity. So like the pursuer, this is so important. The withdrawer isn't uncaring. It can feel that way or look that way. What they're actually trying to do is protect the relationship and themselves.
So that's what's underneath. That's the driver, this intense concern and fear about the relationship. They feel it because they care about their partner, but it comes out as insensitive or, withdrawing, basically. So Let's talk about what a withdrawer typically does to cope. When that attachment fear or stress rises up, a withdrawer might get quiet, stonewall. We see someone just frozen in place and we think, oh, they're so calm. No, they're not. Or they might physically leave the room, withdraw altogether. Some ways of coping would be to immerse in work or exercise or other forms of distractions. Immediate responses might be an explosion of some kind. Minimal answers by saying things like, I don't know, it's fine, or can we talk about this later? Well, on the surface, they might seem calm, like I said, and collected, but underneath, they can be flooded. Usually, it's an attachment fear that drives this coping by thinking, I'm failing you. Nothing I do is ever enough. I will never be enough. If we talk about this, it'll only get worse. I'll make things worse if I say the wrong thing. I'm certain I'm going to say the wrong thing, so I'm just going to be quiet. The withdrawer's nervous system, their brain is silently signaling to them, this is way too much emotion. I need to pull back to stay safe.
And unfortunately, withdrawers are often very misunderstood. When withdrawers use these coping mechanisms to kind of handle and deal with their distress, they can be labeled as cold or checked out, even cruel, insensitive, uncaring, emotionally unavailable. But in reality, they feel flooded, they feel ashamed, they feel powerless, not indifferent. It's not that they feel indifferent, they feel, yeah. Were you going to add something to that?
No, I'm just glad you used the word indifferent because people don't attribute that. Indifferent, it seems like they're ambivalent. I could care less. No, they care very much.
So yeah, that they care so deeply actually for their partner and their relationship. This is the best way they know how to protect that, right? And over time, they've actually learned that to cope by numbing their emotions. And this, can tend to again suggest to those that they interact with that they're insensitive or uncaring or even neglectful. That's another important word to use of this, of the relationship. It just couldn't be further from the truth. They're deeply concerned, they deeply care. So, how does the withdrawal partner contribute to this negative cycle? So, as they pull back, again, the pursuer escalates to get a response. And that escalation itself only increases the withdrawer's sense of failure, their overwhelm, and of course, they continue to withdraw even more. So that's how what they do contributes to the cycle.
They suddenly go silent. As we said, appear to be calm and collected, but they're everything but. The pulling away of their emotion and their physical way of coping is not a calm state. Instead, it's intense distress. It causes a release of cortisol, which is damaging for our main organs. But that distress serves to help them avoid those hard conversations, right? The partner may believe that their silence means they don't care. But in reality, it's the withdrawer's way of coping with that distress. Typical internal thoughts, what are they telling themselves? And what meaning do they give this? I will never get it right. I'm not enough. I can't seem to make you happy. They might even say this out loud. Can't we just be happy? Can't we just get over this? Are you still in that? Why are you so distressed about that? Let's just get over it. The cycle tightens and both partners feel alone. So let's just spend a minute talking about what withdrawers could do differently. This requires thinking about it, planning ahead. An impactful approach might be, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed, but I don't want to turn away. So maybe even making a request like, I need a minute to gather my thoughts. Can you give me a minute? That's a rain check, right? I'm not trying to escape. I just want to clear my mind, and making sure that your partner can collect on that rain check, not just checking out and staying out. So maybe even saying something like, I care about you even when I'm quiet. Give me a minute. Let's talk about this, but I just need a break.
Debbie, you said something a second ago that just really struck me. You said the cycle tightens and both partners feel alone. I mean, that's the sad part about this, right? When two people are longing, the thing they both want the most is to feel close and connected. And it creates this really sad, lonely, isolated spot. that is just so discouraging and hard for both people. So I love that you use that word. It just results in this loneliness on both parts. If we could just conclude this podcast, we understand that breaking this cycle requires practice, repair, and offering forgiveness. This isn't easy, but an understanding and awareness of it is certainly the first step towards really exciting things in your relationship. So when this cycle shows up, and it will, it's so important to name it, to be aware of it, and to go against that initial instinct that we both have, whether the pursuer or the withdrawer, to try and come back together. And so, again, recognizing the tension, be aware of it, name it, and then try saying things like, could we start over? I don't want this distance between us. Hey, I didn't handle that well. Can I please try again? Or can we try again? And I got pulled into the cycle earlier. You matter so much to me. So this kind of repair talk, it builds trust more than even getting it first the right time. That's so encouraging to me that we can stumble through this, be wobbly through it. And even if we mess it up, the repair process of messing it up can actually build trust, even more so than just getting it perfectly the first time.
That's right. And think about it too. You probably at first won't be able to do it immediately. But let's just say something happened yesterday. You can still use, can we start over? I don't want this distance. I remember yesterday, I'm still hurting. I got pulled into the cycle. You matter to me. Can we repair? Can we come back together? Can we get a do-over? So the core reminder in all these things that we've shared with you today is it's not you versus your partner. It's both of you versus that negative cycle. So as we kind of tie a bow on all of this today, let's remember that the hardest moments in your relationship aren't a sign that something's broken. Not at all. They're often a sign that something important needs attention. It means that you both care deeply. When you find yourselves caught in a negative cycle, press pause, remind yourself and each other that you're not the enemy, the pattern is the enemy. And you know what's really interesting? Some of the greatest couples out there, they have their negative cycle too. Those that you think have a perfect marriage have a negative cycle. Could it be that maybe they have worked so intently on this that they're starting to get in sync with each other and they repair swiftly with determination to protect and preserve your lasting connection, even little teeny small shifts, slowing down, speaking from your heart with vulnerability, staying present instead of pulling away can and will restore safety and closeness in your relationship. Every time you choose connection over self-protection, relationship protection, you're strengthening your bond. It's a bonding event. And you've been entrusted with this relationship, with this bond. You're taking one more step toward a lasting, grace-filled relationship. So Sharilyn, we've come to the point where we say, therefore what? And I think if you don't mind, I'm going to start. I love reviewing this work that we do, this incredible opportunity to work with couples and offer them the ways to stabilize and empower their relationship. I'm going to be more focused on mine and my tendency to shut down, withdraw when even things get tense. The world gets tense. I cope by going inside to find the courage to be able to say, I'm in distress. I need your help.
Well, as a fellow withdrawer, I'll echo that, but I also want to add my own. And we talked about the repair, and I was thinking two things. To be humble enough to initiate the repair, that's hard to do. I want to do a better job of that. But also, when your partner has that courage to initiate the repair, we can do a lot we can refuse that and make things worse. I want to be really, what's the word? Just so willing to accept the repair when it's offered, because it's hard. It's hard to offer that repair, and when our partner has the courage to do that. And so when that repair comes, to have the grace and the humility and the gratitude to then accept that repair and be so appreciative of that risk they've taken. That's my therefore what.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, it's all inspiring for me. In fact, every topic that we've chosen, I've realized, boy, I need to improve. And that's okay. That's what we do every day. Thank you so much for listening. We so appreciate you following us. And we hope that you find this useful. Send us your feedback. We'd love to hear it.
Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.